Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today I would like to welcome Byron B.M. Boldt to the show today. We are taking a look at two Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention albums, Freak Out and Absolutely Free. So without any further ado, let's get to the show right after
Susie
this.
cream cheese, honey, what's got into you?
Well, I'll tell you the complete story of Freak Out album. The only reason I put this thing together is I'm a composer and nobody wanted to hear any of my music. Okay? Pissed me off. So I said, well, if they don't want to hear it, I'm going to put me a band together and I'm going to make you listen to it, motherfucker.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight we've got B.M. Boldt. Everyone should know Byron already. You've seen him here before. But tonight we are looking at Frank Vincent Zappa. Born December 21st, 1940, and he passed away December 4th, 1993. You know, Byron, it's amazing that he's been gone this long. I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, I was looking at that today, and I was like, wow, that's almost 30 years. You know, he'd be 82 pretty quick here, and it's like, that's old.
That's old. Well, kind of. Depends on how you look at it. If you're 82, you might not look at it that way.
He's old as my mom, so.
But during his lifetime, he released 62 albums. And since 1994, the Zappa Family Trust has released 57 albums, making a total of 119 albums.
I was keeping up, but it's lately these 5-6 set box sets. I'm like, I can't keep up with all this.
But Amit, who is running the whole family trust thing, absolutely doing a great job, because this mofo from Freak Out, this is fabulous. It's like 4 CD set. Absolutely Free, which is on Zappa Records, the remaster, absolutely beautiful, sounds wonderful. But the only other thing I want to throw out here before we jump in is in June of 2022, the Zappa Trust announced that it sold the entire Zappa catalog to Universal.
Is Amit going to have any input still?
Oh, that I don't know, but I doubt he would have input. Why, if you're getting rid of everything? So that means I would assume that the Zappa Trust is over. I don't know if this stuff will go out of print. I don't know what that means. But this, I don't even think was on Universal. I think this was just totally on I'm looking at it, Zappa Trust, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But
maybe they're bringing him on board as some kind of a project manager on it or something too, though.
Right.
Because I know there's a bunch of stuff coming out right now. I just saw some things there's something coming out, I think, in the next month. Right. I don't know if he's in charge of that one or if that's been switched over.
I don't know. Who knows? But today we're looking at Freak Out and Absolutely Free. Freak Out was the debut album by the Mothers of Invention, released June 27th of 1966 on Verve. This record, is it a concept album? A lot of it, people think that it is. I think it's like the first double album that came out.
First studio
on a pop record. I'm not calling this pop, but back in the day they would call this pop. Yeah. It was produced by Tom Wilson, who also signed the band.
Right.
Album features Zappa on vocals, guitar, along with lead vocalist, tambourine player Ray Collins, bass player Roy Estrada, and of course Jimmy Carl Black, the Indian of the group, and guitar player Elliot Ingbar, who ended up playing with Captain Beefheart.
Yes.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah. Oh.
Chart position 1967. This album landed at 130 on the charts. So it didn't really sell anything. I think this record came out, it was pretty much went in the cutout bins, I think, for the most part.
I think it was more popular in Europe.
Probably.
I'd heard.
But the reviews on this, All Music's given it a 5-star review. Most things give this, like Rolling Stone gave it a 4, but Q gave it a 5-star. If you go out there and look, it's for the most part, it's a 5-star record. I can't argue with that. And of course, Byron and I are going to look at it, and I'm going to turn it over to Byron just to start us off. So, the majority of people think it's a 5-star record. What is your basic thoughts on this record? And
yeah, I'm not going to give it. I'm not going to give it a 5-star because.
What would you give it?
I think we should wait till I get to the end of my review first.
All right, Byron, you go for it.
My thoughts are there are better Mothers of Invention albums, in my opinion. So I don't know.
You have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere.
True. So
I think the Mothers, I'm just going to basically say this before we get going. You have a lot of bands that put out their first album and they can never capture the genie in a bottle again. The first album is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the Mothers, and I'm just talking the Mothers, I'm not talking Frank Zappa solo. I think the Mothers improved over time. I think their body of work improved. Even though this might be considered a 5-star record, and anybody who hasn't heard this has to hear this, if you can even pick it up anymore. I mean, it was like, think about it, Byron. I know I'm turning it over to you. I don't mean to hog everything.
All right.
But think about it. We're talking 1966. There was nothing else like
right.
this.
That was one of my notes here. Is like, this is before Pink Floyd. This is before Revolver.
We're talking 1966.
Yes.
What did I just say? July. Revolver came out in August. Yeah. So but you can't compare. You can't compare the Mothers and the Beatles. That's two different things. But still.
But they credit the Beatles for changing on like Rubber Soul a little bit with Revolver. But this was unlike anything. So go ahead.
Right. And Pet Sounds came out in May, which you can't compare. But this is like something that was dropped on the planet out of outer space. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us your thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Frank in that he was also, besides, this guitar player who could play some drums and other instruments, he was a composer, and he was influenced by Stravinsky, Varese. So his classical composing was very avant-garde and dissonant. And we won't really see a whole lot of that on the first album, but you start to see a little bit of it on the second album. He didn't do just, he did rock, doo-wop, jazz fusion, orchestral, and, he had a lot of instrumental guitar albums too. So he did a lot of genres. Prior to the Mothers, though, he wrote and recorded a couple soundtracks in 62 and 65 of The World's Greatest Sinner in 1962 and Run Home Slow in 1965. I think the first one, you can find it on Spotify. They have the whole actually, I think it's the whole movies, the audio tracks. So he'd composed that. And then from some of that money, he created he bought a recording studio, which he called Studio Z. So prior to the Mothers recording Freak Out, he had recorded a bunch of singles for various local artists in that area. This is something that was released. It contains about, I think 3 singles. So 6 songs total of various groups that he produced, and he co-wrote some of that stuff. He liked to make fun of everybody and everything. And he would offend anybody. He was equal opportunity offender. He didn't tolerate stupidity. He's probably most famous for his comedic songs that were somewhat juvenile, but but there was so much more to him than that. You know what I mean?
Well, you think about it. The early stuff, the Mother stuff, wasn't so juvenile.
Correct.
He became that.
Yeah.
This is why I think the Mother stuff was far superior. And I like his later stuff too, but all that shtick. But the Mothers weren't all about that. It was like on a different level. Some may argue with that, but I'm just saying.
There's quite a bit of comedy in these first two albums, but it's not juvenile comedy,
right?
Per
there's
se.
no juvenile comedy.
There's some funny stuff in here, which we'll get to. He also talked a lot about his conceptual continuity, which would be there would be like characters or musical themes or ideas which would recur from album to album to album. Not always in every album, but one character might occur in an album and then not show up for a few more years in a different album. So I'll probably mention a little bit of that as we go through some of these. And this album the first album actually is number 243 in the Rolling Stones top 500. So they give it some respect. So anyway,
no doubt. Yeah.
So the other thing I want to talk about before we quite get into this is the Mothers at this point, they seem to really be, they seem to take pride in having this kind of unkempt, rough look to them where, most bands at that time were like wearing their suits and they still had short hair, or these guys didn't really care about any of that. And you can kind of hear that in their music too. They just didn't give a shit and they just were going to do whatever the hell they wanted. But we'll talk about that because they did like doo-wop, but they didn't do doo-wop like anybody else, in my opinion. Theirs was just kind of out of left field.
Well, it's kind of way out there. If you listen to like Reuben and the Jets, it's
right. So,
we'll get to that record. That's a great record. I love that record.
But so anyway, so like I said, they would take a love song and they would do a complete twist on it, where they'd be, instead of it being about being in love, it's like, why did you screw me over? Kind of thing. So anyway, so I guess we can probably start talking about this.
Well, yeah, but Zappa loved doo-wop. Wasn't that like his favorite genre?
He loved that doo-wop and R&B from the 50s, like Johnny Guitar Watson and stuff like that. Sugarcane Harris was like in a group called Don and Don, I think. So, but
he loved all that stuff.
He loved it. And then he loved Verace, So he was just all over the place.
You combine both of them and this is what you get, so to speak.
Correct.
All right. Well, we can dive into it. So what's your take on the whole
So here's my
Freak Out album?
I have the original.
What is
Ryko.
that one?
This is the Ryko, the original CD version.
This is the original Ryko CD pressed in Japan.
Mine is fine. Yeah, this is made in Japan as well. So does that mean it sounds better?
Well, no, it's all the same. But
that
means it's an early one, is what it means.
So I had a few notes on that. So this original CD apparently, it was some of the tracks were remixed. They weren't all remixes from what I had read, but some of them definitely
quite
were.
A bit though.
And but like that version you had is the original mix.
It does have the original mix on here, yes.
But what I was told is that the 2012 version, which is not the Mofo, but that's a later one, that is basically the same as the Ryko with some slightly different artwork. There's a Zappa Patio website which breaks all this down. If you ever want to look into that.
That's what I'm saying. If anybody wants the original mix of Freak Out, you have to get the Mofo version. If you can find it, you've got to have it. What is this? I forget how many CDs is in here. Like
4. There's a 2-disc version as well.
Well, whatever you need to do to get this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a hardcore fan,
if you can't find the 4, get the 2, then you can have the original mix. It just doesn't have all the extra demos and stuff.
Right, but if you're a completist, you'll need it. Anyway, go ahead, Byron. I'm sorry.
I'm into this stupid thing. Right? That's not stupid. It's a great album.
It's a great record.
I don't know. I was going to kind of talk a little bit about the songs individually, but trying to not talk about them too much because we'll be here all night. So it starts out with like Hungry Freaks Daddy, which I actually read was not going to be the original opener, but they redid it. They redid the order. But so I like that song a lot. It's a real mid-tempo rocker. He's pretty critical of our education system in that, which you'll find is kind of a theme. He's kind of an anti-establishment kind of guy. And, he always said that if you wanted to learn something, go to the library. Don't expect to learn it in school. And right. It's kind of how I think he taught himself to be a composer. But the song's got a real long guitar solo in it. And I like that song. I don't think he had quite developed his guitar style hadn't quite developed to where he ended up at this point. It's still good soloing, but it's just not where he ended up later in his career. I thought he was much more of
fluid.
Well, yeah, and just his style was more unique later, I think. And here he just sounds more like, it's hard to tell who's exactly playing because don't forget on this record there's a lot of studio musicians on here too. True,
so I'm assuming it's Frank playing.
I think it is, but
I don't know.
He just doesn't have his unique style developed at this point, I think.
Right.
But the next song is I Ain't Got No Heart. That one is one of these cynical songs about love where he says, I laugh at fools in love and why should I be stuck with you? But, it's a pretty good song. Just showing that he thinks love songs are kind of stupid. You'll learn that, later in his career.
No, but a lot of those doo-wop songs, it may look like it's a love song on the surface, but there's a lot more deeper meaning underneath.
The next song, Who Are the Brain Police? I'll let you comment on this. I don't know what the hell that song's about. I don't think it really has a meaning.
It's almost psychedelia. I don't.
Yeah,
I really don't know what it's about.
I think he said he dreamed the song, so maybe it was some kind of a nightmare. But it's this really slow and dark, scary song to begin with. Who are the brain police? But then it breaks into this real fast psychedelic section, which reminds me of like Pink Floyd back in the early days, where they'd have their long extended jams. Like I said, though, this is prior to Pink Floyd.
Right. When did Piper come out? I can't remember. Remind me. Like
67,
October? 67.
Yeah.
So
it's like fall, yeah.
And that's what's so crazy about this is it's so early.
Yeah.
I mean, people in 1966 just must have listened to this and went, what the hell is happening?
The next song is this Go Cry on Somebody Else's Shoulder, which, here's our first real doo-wop song, which, again, it's cynical, and the song is basically about how he loves this girl, but she left him and now she wants to come back. And he's like, forget you. I'm out of here. Go find somebody else to cry on their shoulder. But I really like that one. And,
that was written by Frank and Ray Collins. So I'm assuming Ray wrote lyrics on that.
Yeah, Ray's got a real nice voice too. He's got the nicest voice in the band, I think.
Well, he's really suited for that type of track too.
He's suited for doo-wop. I don't know that any of the other guys are really suited for it, but that's what makes their doo-wop kind of cool. They don't really sound like a total doo-wop band. The next song is Motherly Love.
Yeah, I like this track.
It's a real catchy one with it's a double entendre because you're thinking, oh, motherly love. Well, they're talking about the Mothers of Invention loving the girls. It's not your mother loving.
Well, it is 1966. There's a lot of love going on. A lot of free love.
It's kind of strange though because it's one of the predominant instruments in it is kazoos.
Of course.
So you don't hear a lot of that. How Could I Be Such a Fool comes up next. Real slow one. It's a breakup song. It's got some orchestration, some of that, 60s sounding orchestration,
Right.
But the singer is real bitter about how the person ruined their life. This person ruined their life. I'm assuming it's a girl. So it's
I'm sure it is.
So there's a little bitterness and resentment in some of these songs. But that's the end of the first side.
Mm-hmm.
We get in the second side, and the song's called Wowie Zowie, which is catchy bubblegum in my opinion. And it is catchy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they're kind of making fun of that whole genre, to be honest with you. Because there's a couple lines in there that goes, I don't even care if you shave your legs, or I don't care if you brush your teeth, So like I said, it's that whole mother's frank sense of humor going on.
Right. And I just still think in 1966, the fact that they're going down that road is just amazing. I'm surprised. I can't imagine. I mean, Tom Wilson signed them. I can't even imagine during that era they would even be signed, but somehow they slipped through. I'm just saying.
Story that Zappa told was that Tom had come to see them live, and he only heard one song, and it was Trouble Every Day, and he really liked it. And then he left, and then he signed them. And then when they showed up in the studio, he's like, "Holy shit!
What the hell just happened? What did I do?"
Yeah, right.
I get it. Yeah,
yeah. But so the next song is "You Didn't Try to Call Me." I think that's maybe one of my favorite songs on the album, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of this mid-tempo. 60s type rocker, but it's got this orchestration to it. And the singer's mad because the girl that he loves, she's blowing him off, and he's waiting for her to call and she never calls. And he's like, I was out washing my car all day. I reprimed the fender and you never called me. What the hell's going on? But it really kind of builds up too. It's got that, like I said, that 60s kind of a Tom Jones feel to it, the way it sounds. At least that's my thought. I don't know what you think.
No, I think that's fair. I think that kind of Tom Jones feel. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That one I put an asterisk next to because I really dig that song. So
I think, I dig the next song too.
Okay. Any Way the Wind Blows.
Any Way the Wind Blows. I think it's
very catchy
as well.
Very catchy. Once again, now this one I had read, he said he wrote this during his divorce.
Whose divorce?
Frank's, because he was married.
Oh yeah, he was married before.
Right. So he basically, the song's about him telling his girlfriend that his old girlfriend, that the new girlfriend is way better. Or it could have been a wife or whatever.
Dudes kind of do that. That's the way they operate. It's sociology 101.
But it just cracks me up that he's writing songs like this. Hey, my new girlfriend's way better than you. Because I don't think people did that back then. Maybe, I don't know. I was too young to know.
I wouldn't know. I had no idea. Go ahead.
So I'm Not Satisfied is the next track. Another mid-tempo song with some orchestration, and it's kind of a depressing song in some ways because the guy is basically saying that he hates his life and he really rather just kind of die, So that's pretty dark.
Oh yeah, it's definitely dark. Yeah.
And you're probably wondering why I'm here. Ends the second side. That's another mid-tempo song with kazoos.
Kazoos have a constant theme on this record. I think that's the problem with, if you look at a Katy Perry record, there's not enough kazoos on it. That's the way I look at it.
I don't know. I've not listened to her album, so
I haven't either. But I know there's no kazoos.
But in this song, there's the mention of Caravan with the drum solo. That is a conceptual continuity right there, because we will discuss that again later.
Conceptual continuity,
right? Which we talked about earlier, where that's recurring themes and characters and ideas.
Yes.
So, because in that song, he mentioned something about Caravan with a drum solo. I don't remember the exact line, but it comes up again in the next album. So
Absolutely free.
yep. So then now we're on to side 3. So the second disc of this album is way more experimental. Well, it was pretty. First disc was pretty experimental. This was a little more.
I don't know if that's fair. I think the whole side 3's got that whole "Help I'm a Rock" suite that's in 3 movements. So
Yes.
I think you're fair to say that it's more. Yeah, it's more
I
experimental.
don't know what the word avant-garde maybe, but you know,
I think avant-garde is a good term. I don't know how many people consider that. I would almost consider this avant-garde to some degree, considering the time period. Is it avant-garde like John Cage? No, but I would say that's a fair statement. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So we start with Trouble Every Day, which we'd kind of mentioned. That was a song that Tom Wilson had heard and signed them all based off of that. And that it's kind of a R&B type song, and it's written about the Watts riots that occurred in the 60s in LA. It's a pretty decent track. He ended up recording that a couple other times in his career. A lot of the songs we've talked about will be re-recorded on other albums. That's another thing that Zappa liked to do. So then we get to Help I'm a Rock.
Yeah, what's your thoughts? What is your thoughts on Help I'm a Rock?
Well, like you were saying, I think that is a 3-parter. And I
mean, it's 8 minutes long.
Yeah, but okay, so it starts out with that real repetitive Help I'm a Rock.
Almost like a chant.
Yeah, and it's just it's real repetitive. And there's all this just like someone speaking like a language that you don't they're making up some kind of language, and there's all this moaning and groaning going on, and that goes on for a couple minutes, and that's okay. But then and Frank's saying, "Help I'm a rock, help I'm a rock," and he's like, "Well, I wish I wasn't a rock," and things like that. I don't know what he's talking about, but whatever. He's like, "But I wish I was I don't know, I wish I was a policeman or something." I don't know. But then that ends up going into the "It Can't Happen Here" section, which to me is more of like a collage. And, has various people saying, "It can't happen here. Who could imagine?" They would freak out in, Kansas and wherever the hell else. And that's all right. Which then it breaks into this jazz piano section for a minute or so, which just completely comes out of nowhere.
Well,
right? It's just like,
but there's a reason. There's a reason. It's Frank had this all planned out.
So then we go,
but it does seem to come out of nowhere.
Kind of comes out of nowhere, that jazz section. Then we go back to the "Who Could Imagine" stuff. And then we get introduced to Susie Cream Cheese.
I love Susie Cream Cheese.
Susie Cream Cheese. More conceptual continuity. As we see here. Susie Cream Cheese, What's Got Into You, on the back of the first album. So we don't really know anything about her other than.
Well, wasn't she pretty much made up?
Yeah, she's, I think it was Pamela Zarabuka or some other gal.
Right.
Lived with Frank for a while, was his roommate. I don't know if they were, well, whatever.
I don't think they were intimate. I think she
wasn't Pamela.
But I mean, she was just
a different gal. Yeah.
But there was just like what I read, I think that Susie Cream Cheese could have almost been anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. She was just made up character.
He would have whoever come in and do the vocals, for, her like isn't she on like Uncle Meat too? Doesn't she make an appearance?
I believe so. I know she does show up again in Absolutely Free as well. Right. So we'll get to that.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So like I said, Susie Cream Cheese is introduced. So she's conceptual continuity as well. And that's the end of the side 3. Then we get to side 4, which is Return of the Son of Monster Magnet, which is like over 12 minutes of just total bizarreness, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
But what I had read that this is an unfinished piece. Frank wanted to do way more overdubs to it, but they were running out of time and money. So it's really kind of an unfinished piece.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of percussion to it. They brought in a bunch of percussion, and they had all these hippies, freaks in the studio in the middle of the night, and they were all kind of jamming on these bongos or whatever. And you can hear all this percussion going on and hand clapping and yelling. But the song also has various piano and vocal and sound effects going on it. And there's really no melody at all to the song. I don't really care for it.
Yeah, I was just curious though that you just gave me a thought. I don't know what the budget was for this record, but you had a lot of the Wrecking Crew playing on here.
Yeah.
Augmenting the regular, Mothers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this album, if you really think about it, for the first debut album, seemed to have a lot of backing. Maybe that was Tom Wilson. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what the budget was. It seemed like it had a fairly big budget for 1966.
Yeah, I don't know how I got him to sign off on a double either.
I have no idea.
It's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So
anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah, so that's really about it. And I guess if I'm going to give this a score,
mm-hmm.
We're going to do 1 to 10 or 1 to 5.
Well, I like to do 1 to 5, but some people like to do 1 to 10.
Everybody
I like to follow what Rolling Stone would do.
Okay. We'll go 1 to 5 then. I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah.
Maybe a 3.5. I don't know about that. I want to go.
That seems pretty low though.
4. No higher than a 4.
So okay, let's say you give it a 3.5. Is it because
side 4 mainly?
Well,
kills it.
The thing is, this is the way I look at this record. It was very groundbreaking. No one else was doing anything like this at the time. You could listen to it now and it may sound dated. I can get that. But a lot of these records, like if you look at Pepper, you look at Revolver, some people could look at those and go, oh, they sound kind of dated. Look at Pet Sounds. But think about it. No one else was doing anything like this at the time. This was cutting edge. What the Mothers were doing, and the fact that they got signed and they put out a double record. I mean, I know it didn't sell. It got to 130 on the charts, but there was nothing else like it. It was a cult album at this point. It's kind of like the first Velvet Underground album, that it didn't sell shit, but it became very influential. And well, you know what I'm going. I think 3.5's a bit. I'm going to give this. We know there are better records coming from the Mothers, but I would give this a 4-star. Me personally, right. I'm going to give it 4. Is it a 5-star record? It might be, but we're going to look at other Mothers records, and they improved as they kept going.
Yeah, you can't go higher than 5.
But it is but it's a very important record. Think about, we're talking July of 66.
Yeah.
There is nothing like this.
Yeah.
On the
actually wrote down. I wrote down 3.75, but I don't think you want to go 3.75. So I'd probably go to a 4.
Give it a 4.
I would round it up instead of down. So, yeah.
Though we might get some comments, and I hope anybody watching this episode, please comment and give us your rating on this record, your thoughts on it, because like I said, it was a very adventurous, I don't know if it's life-changing for some people. I want to use the word life-changing, but it was very influential, and I think a lot of musicians took notice. Probably more musicians took notice of this record than regular people. I'm just saying
Well,
it. I don't know. What do I
thought
know?
I had
I'm just some dude.
Didn't
you
the
know?
Beatles say that they loved this album? It was very influential on Sgt. Pepper's.
I believe Paul McCartney and John Lennon did, they heard it. Yeah. They thought it was great.
I mean, I was 2 years old, so it didn't influence me at all.
It didn't. Well, it influenced you later.
Yeah, but I would say other things of his influenced me more than this.
Okay. Fair enough.
You know.
So can we agree? I'm not trying to argue with you, but considering when this came out and what it did to musicians and how they looked at it, it's very influential, like Velvet Underground.
Groundbreaking.
I'm going to give it a 4, even though I do like the next album better.
Right. So do I.
Okay, well, let's.
So,
all right, so we're going to give this a 4.
Introduce the next one if you want.
I can't add anything more than what you've added. I think you've done a beautiful job talking about this record. What can I say? You're all over it. So let's talk about the next record. Absolutely Free. This is the second studio album. This was released May 26th in 1967 by Verve. Much like the first album, this also had, it was, considering the time, it was very complex musical compositions, and it's very political. And of course, Frank's all about the social satire. It's kind of like an extension of what Freak Out was, but things are getting more fine-tuned in my mind. This record had more interconnected movements. So, we've got more. We had the Help I'm a Rock, which was kind of like a multi-suite. Well, I guess it was a suite, but you have more of this on Absolutely Free. This also has one of the most famous Frank Zappa songs, Brown Shoes Don't Make It.
His masterpiece, first masterpiece.
I would say it's his first masterpiece. Very catchy. What someone described it as a condensed 2-hour musical. I don't know.
Yeah, I wrote down it's a mini musical.
Ray Collins, who we mentioned before, said that he thought that Absolutely Free is probably his favorite of the classic Mothers albums. And I can't argue with that, though I think I like other Mothers albums better. But like I said, I don't want to repeat myself. They started out with Freak Out, but they kept improving. And I think this is a major improvement over Freak Out. Okay. So Byron, what is your thoughts on Absolutely Free?
Okay. This came out May 26, 1967, also on Verve and produced by Tom Wilson again. And it was available in mono and stereo. It reached Billboard number 41 this time.
Getting a little bit better.
It's getting better. Mm-hmm. The CD version was released with 2 bonus tracks in the middle, which we'll talk about.
Okay.
They weren't on the original one, no. The CDs all had too much reverb.
Well, not this one. Rikos. Not the Mothers.
Except for the 2012 version, which you've got there.
Right. And that's really, kids, I'm just going to throw it out there. If you've got those Rikos, get the 2012s.
Rikos.
I know, but this is the one you want.
A completist should have them both.
Okay, I can't argue with that. But this stumps the Ryko because this is the way it was originally intended. All right. Anyway,
I've never seen.
That's another debate. People can leave a comment down there on which version they like. Maybe they like the Rykos, but I think it's been pretty much debated that the 2012 versions.
There's apparently also a 2017 bonus disc version, which I've never seen, which has some advertisements and a few other remix tracks in it. So look for.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, I saw it listed on Wikipedia. but I've never seen it in person.
I thought this was the only.
So that's the
I don't
12.
know. We'll have to do some.
Yeah, it
that's
came out
12.
5 years later. It's 2000. So on this album,
Well, have to look.
they
that up.
lose Elliot Ingber, but they
Mhm.
add Billy Mundy on drums. So they have 2 drummers at this point, and they add Don Preston on keyboards
Love Don's work. Holy
and
crap!
Bunk Gardner on woodwinds,
Mhm.
and then there was a guy named Jim Fielder who I'd never heard of. He's not listed on the album apparently, but he played some additional guitar.
Yeah, he like disappeared. I
Yeah,
don't
he
know what happened
disappeared.
to him.
But I really think that Don and Bunk added a lot to the sound on this album, where the 1st album was just more of a rock band with some orchestration behind them, where now you're getting a lot more keyboards, you're getting a lot more horn sounds, or I should say woodwinds. So it adds a lot to their sound. So basically, each side of this album is, like you had mentioned, a suite.
Yeah.
And the first side, they call it the Absolutely Free Suite. So what I don't quite understand is this whole side talks about prunes and vegetables, cheese, and I don't know what the hell any of it means. You got anything to add to that?
No, but I can add this. I kind of didn't touch on this, but I just wanted to touch on how this album was reviewed before we get really going. All Music gave it 4.5. Kerrang gave it 1 star. They didn't like it, but you know, it's Kerrang.
They were
Rolling Stone Album Guide gave it 4.5 stars. Village Voice gave it a B- back in the day. But there's a lot on this record, Byron, that doesn't make sense. But
exactly,
that is the allure.
Yeah.
And even though maybe it doesn't make sense, I find this record brilliant. I could listen to this record over and over and never get tired of it.
I've listened to it quite a few times lately, and it's gotten better. I mean,
right.
I'm loving it even more than I used to.
I do have a question before we keep moving. When on the 2012 version, is Why Don't You Do Me Right, Big Leg Emma on there? I can't remember.
Yes. Well,
they're still in the middle.
It's on the Ryko in the middle, but I don't know about the 2012.
God, I can't remember. I put my glasses on to look. I do, but I can't see it. I guess I'll look. For God's sake.
I would think it's on there.
I don't think so. I don't think it's on there.
Oh, so you got to have them both then.
And I can't see it. It's too dark.
All right. So
anyway, go ahead. Sorry. I feel like we're
side one starts out with Plastic People. This song's all over the place, in my opinion. It's got at times it kind of starts out with this. Well, it starts out with some rambling discussions or whatever, but it's got the Louie Louie riff kind of in there as well. Dun, 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 dun. But the song keeps switching between these loud and fast sections and quiet, slow sections. And then it's got all these operatic style vocals, which we'll probably talk about a little bit on this album. And it's basically about people that are materialistic and people that just want to conform to everything. I like that song a lot, though. It's just, like I said, it's got a lot of different parts to it. It's, fast, slow.
Right.
I really like it. Then we get into the Duke of Prunes.
I love the Duke of Prunes.
Yeah, this is a real slow song with just some flute and some clean guitar and I don't know, is that tenor? Kind of a deep operatic vocal.
It could be.
And it's just kind of slow, and he's just singing in this real deep voice about prunes and whatever the else.
Man, who doesn't like prunes? For God's sake.
But then the song picks up and the whole band joins in, which then leads us to Amnesia Vivace, which is a real short instrumental based on Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, Firebird Suite. and a song called Duke of Earl, which I don't think I've ever heard. But once again, it sounds a little classical at times, and it has these opera vocals, and then it's got this real crazy saxophone solo in it from Bunk Gardner, which I think that's really the first time we've heard anything like that on a Mothers album. Then we go back to the Duke regains his chops, which is basically a continuation of the Duke of Prunes song. And but then it kind of builds up to this climax, and then like even Frank says it, so it's like the Supremes, or it builds up. I don't know if it's a Ronnie, a Phil Spector kind of a wall of sound thing or not. I don't know, but like maybe not.
Maybe not.
It just kind of builds up into this, 60s type climax, which I really like. So then we get into Call Any Vegetable.
Well, like Colin.
I don't know what the hell this song's about, but
I couldn't tell you.
But it starts out, and I'm going to call it a Latin type riff. This da 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 da, and it just keeps doing that. And they're singing "Call Any Vegetable," "Call It by Name."
But you have to admit, it's very catchy.
Yes, it is. And he's talking about all kinds of vegetables, and then this rutabaga is out of rutabaga. And then it slows down, and it's kind of a classical sounding thing again, which then jumps into this invocation and ritual dance of the young pumpkin, which is a real long instrumental with this real long guitar solo.
Right.
Like I said earlier, it's Frank, but it doesn't sound like what Frank becomes later as far as a guitarist. It's a difference. I don't know. Maybe it's just the style of the music, but it doesn't really sound like.
We're in 1967.
Right. His style is evolving.
I mean, 67, Hendrix came out, which totally changed the whole guitar landscape at that point. And this is pre that. This was, I'm just saying. So a lot changed when Jimmy came on the scene,
Yeah, right. That's like a 6-minute instrumental, I think. And then it leads into the soft cell conclusion, which is basically the grand finale for the Call Any Vegetable. And, he's like talking about muffins and pumpkins and wax paper and Caledonian mahogany's elbow.
Of course he is.
What does all this mean? But,
no idea.
And that's how the first side ends. It's a great side.
Great side.
So, you got anything else you want to add to that side?
I don't know. I think it's so far. I think you've summed it up brilliantly. I say let's keep going. Let's go on to America Drinks. What's your thoughts on that? I love that track, to be quite honest.
Look, we'll save the 2 bonus tracks for the end. You want to do that?
You know what? I was doing a little bit of research while you were talking. And that 2017 reissue bonus record, it didn't come out on CD as far as I can tell. Must have been on vinyl.
Could be.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
Or heard it. Byron, I didn't even know it existed. So I don't know if that was a record store day thing or what.
I saw it on
If someone knows, please leave it in the comments, for God's sakes, because I really don't know. Here I thought I knew everything that was going on, and now you've enlightened me that now I don't. Now I feel inadequate and weak, and
it didn't look like anything. It was like, oh God, I got to hear that.
Well, maybe. Put it out on damn CD, though, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, let's quickly, before we forget, we'll talk about the 2 bonus
Yeah,
tracks.
we could forget.
Right. We'll forget
America
about it.
Drinks.
So there were 2 bonus tracks, and I believe they were the A side and the B side of a single.
Oh yeah, Big Leg Emma.
Big Leg Emma.
Right.
Yeah. And Frank said this was an attempt to make dumb music to appeal to dumb teenagers. So that kind of sums up a lot of how he just was. He kind of has this disdain for his audience in some way. I don't think he's
to some
really
degree. I agree. Yeah.
I don't think he feels like that's his audience, but he thinks that there are a lot of people that are like that, and maybe they're not his audience, but other audiences. But yeah, so Big Leg Emma, I really like that song. I think it's pretty catchy.
I think it's fairly commercial for what it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
In
It's
a
got lot
weird,
of-
bizarre sense.
It's
But
got a lot of
yeah.
woodwinds to it, you know. Da,
Mhm.
da, 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 da. But it's great because he's like, you know, oh, I really like this chick Emma, but you know, she put on weight and
She's
her
got
face
big
broke
legs.
out. Yeah, she got big legs, but you know, she put on all this weight and her face broke out. So like, I'm done.
Sounds like a teen anthem to me.
Right. So then the Why Don't You Do Me Right?
Mhm.
Now, that's kind of a heavier song, I think, with a it's got a good guitar solo on it. It
Mhm.
kind of reminds me of style-wise Inagata Davida. You know, da, 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 you know, it's got that sound to it, kind of heavy and slow. And basically, you know, it's a song about why is this girl doing me wrong? You know, well, that's been a repeating theme through a lot of the songs we've read in the first album, especially.
I do have a question before we go on.
Sure.
How do you feel about on that original issue of Absolutely Free that they put Big Leg Emma and Why Don't You Do Me Right in the middle of the whole?
They should have stuck it on the end.
They should have stuck it on the end, I think, because I think it kind of disrupts the flow to some degree. Even though I like both of those tracks, don't get me wrong.
Good
But
songs.
if you're a purist, it kind of disrupts it a bit. But should have put it at the end. But it was the 80s when they did it. So
Yeah.
I was just curious before we go on how you felt about it.
Yeah, I'd have preferred them at the end.
Yeah.
So so we get to side 2 here,
Mm-hmm.
and they call this suite the Mothers of Invention American Pageant, I guess.
And it starts out with America
America
Drinks.
Drinks.
Mhm.
So this side, it's got a lot of lounge style vocals. Is that's the way I look at it.
No, I think you're 100% right. It's
So,
very
It
loungy.
kind of starts and ends with the guy doing lounge vocals, basically, and but it's weird because it's the way this America Drink starts. It's almost like there's no solid beat. The beat kind of is speeding up and slowing down, and
Mhm.
it's just, you can't really start getting into the feel for it.
No.
But then finally it kind of starts to pick up speed, and there's a nice instrumental section pretty fast, which then leads us into Status Back Baby, which is probably the hit single type song of the album. Got that? It's got, you know, it's like a catchy pop song about being cool, how to be cool in high school. You know,
Reoccurring theme.
Right. So yeah, it's like he's trying to pander to the teenage audience at this point. I don't think he's really pandering. He's just making fun of them. But,
Right.
But he thinks that they're dumb enough to fall for it or something.
Oh,
But it's
no,
a really
pretty
good
much. I
song.
think that, yeah, well put. Yeah, exactly.
But I like it. It's a real catchy song.
Mhm.
Which leads Uncle Bernie's Farm, which I don't know what the hell that's about. He's talking about, you know, airplane glue and babies and bombs to blow up your mom and dad. What are you talking about?
I don't know. God only knows. I really don't know. I'm sure someone out there knows.
It's probably got some kind of a deep political meaning to it. But maybe it's about
Well, we could look that up.
rebellion. Maybe it's about rebelling or something.
Someone leave a comment and let us know what it means. I'll let the audience determine what that means.
Right. So then we get the Son of Susie Cream Cheese. So
Mhm.
here's our conceptual continuity again.
Here we go. Susie's back.
Once again, basically the riff on this is Louie Louie. Susie Cream Cheese. Oh, baby, now what's got into you? And you
Yeah.
kind of keep repeating that over it because that's Louie Louie. Oh my, you know. But
It's Louie Louie. Yeah.
yeah, it really is. And it's basically a song about Susie. She disappeared and took off, and it's like, well, we got to go find her.
Mhm.
I don't know what it's got to do with anything else, but you know, it's conceptual continuity, Susie.
Right.
Which now leads us to Brown Shoes Don't Make It.
All 7
Mhm.
minutes and 26 seconds of it.
And like you had said, it is like this condensed musical. And really, I was trying to count it. There's about 10 different parts in this song, it seems like. And they're all different from each other. And there's some avant-garde classical sections in there too, with some like narration over the top. I would say this song basically sums up every side of Zappa. One song. It's just got everything that, well, it doesn't have probably any guitar solos that I can think of.
Well, that's fine, but it's not. Well, if you think about it, if this is one of the greatest Zappa songs, which I can't argue with that, I mean, there's nothing juvenile about it. I almost think that when Zappa, when he starts doing all that juvenile stuff, it's almost like I don't want to say it's a self-parody. That's not what I mean. But I look at a lot of this Mother stuff. It's just way out there, way more advanced. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Go ahead, ask me.
You're saying it's not really the juvenile. What about the section where he says, "If she were my daughter, I'd smother that girl in chocolate syrup"? What is that? What is that?
Well, I don't know if that's juvenile. I don't think that.
I don't know what that is. It
well, you know what that means, for God's sakes. Of course.
I don't know what it is.
But it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
He's making a statement about, there are some people like that would probably go to that,
Yeah, well, because prior to that, he's talking about what is it?
I mean, the story in that whole song about the, City Hall official fantasizing about having sex with a 13-year-old girl. It all kind of.
Well, I try to think
it's out there, but
it's making fun of conformity again in certain parts, and then he's also making fun of greed, and I think sexual deviance.
Right.
Maybe there's the two sexual deviants. There's the father, and then there's the City Hall guy. So
right.
Maybe 100%. That's what it's all about. So
right.
That's like you said, it's one of his best songs. So.
Well, one of the critics that I saw that mentioned they thought that this possibly was Zappa's first masterpiece.
Right.
I don't know what you think. How do you look at it that way? Or what's your thoughts on that?
There's no masterpieces on the first album. There's some good stuff on there. I think.
It's almost like it's a collection of tracks.
But yeah,
this is more of a cohesive record, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, to me, this is the first song of his that is just unforgettable. I like the first album. There's some good stuff on the road, but
I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that I think, like I said, the band improves. Right. Frank's fine-tuning the whole thing as he keeps going. So,
but yeah,
I would say that this would be like his first masterpiece, so to speak.
Yeah. So that song also, you really hear his first. This is his first examples of him doing composing on a Mother's album too. I think in his classical style. There was orchestration on some of the other the first album. It wasn't his, or it wasn't. I don't think his composing. Where this is some of his actual composing, and it's
right.
It's dissonant. It's dissonant and little avant-garde, and you'll hear that in other albums coming up too. So,
what do you think about America Drinks and Go Home?
Yeah, that's the last song on the album, and it's funny because it's a continuation of the first song on this side about the lounge. It's a lounge and it's last call. So, there's the lounge singer singing and he's okay. It's last call. And,
it's very sloppy. The band is just kind of almost holding it together. Right. Almost.
And then you got all this mayhem going on in the background with all the people in the audience, and you hear this cash register, everybody's paying their bills or whatever. And then he's like, hey, some guy says, you want to hear Caravan with the drum solo, which was mentioned in the first album. So there's a little more conceptual continuity. I would say this song reminds me of You Know My Name, Look Up the Number.
Kind of.
The Beatles song.
Well, the other thing is this is recorded in like November 66 and released came out in 67. When did the Monkeys Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones come out? Was that November 67? Because there's a track on there that's kind of similar to this, where they're doing kind of a loungy kind of parody kind of thing that Mike Nesmith sings.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this had a lot of influence on other things.
Yeah.
I mean, no one was really doing anything like this. Rolling Stones, On With the Shows, kind of like that.
Yeah.
My Friend by Hendrix. Well, it was recorded in 68, but came out in 71. And you mentioned You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, which the Beatles have been working on. I don't know. Did they? Well, it was recorded in 67 and 68. Finally came out in 70, but the Beatles had been working on that for a whole period of time. I don't know if the Beatles ever thought they were really going to release it, but
B-side, wasn't it?
It was a B-side of Let It Be.
Okay.
But I guess what I'm trying to say, did this have influence on other artists? No one was doing America Drinks and Goes Home. No one was doing anything like this in this time period.
That's how it just cracks.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave it at there. I mean, everything has to start somewhere, but no one did anything quite like this.
You know, it reminds me a little bit of back on Saturday Night Live when Bill Murray was the Nick the Lounge singer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he'd be like singing and then talking to the crowd. It reminds me of that.
I wouldn't doubt that this was an influence on that. I have no doubt.
Yeah. But so that's the end of the album. And
yeah, but what a way. What do you think of the whole sequencing of the record and how it flows?
I
mean, do you think
this is a great album, but you know,
no, go ahead, Byron. What are you going to say?
So, I mean, these suites, like the first side, there's the whole, you know, Duke of Prunes and Colony, Duke regains his chops, Colony Vegetable. Right. That all flows.
It flows. Then, you would, if you put this out on paper and looked at it, you would have think that this record would be a mess. But it works.
Now, I don't think side one seems to have like a purpose, and where side two, it's just a bunch of songs that don't really seem to be tied together other than the first and the last song. But it's great anyway.
For the second album, holy crap, they hit it out of the park. Like I said, I don't think there's anything weak on the record. It's one of my favorite records. But we'll get to the next one. That might, you know, this is up there.
What are you going to give?
This is probably my second favorite.
So what are you going to score it?
Oh, I give this a 5.
Oh, okay.
5 out of 5, definitely. Even though there are better, I know that's a stretch. Because I know they even get better, but this is so good. I'll still give it a 5, even though there are even better ones later.
All right.
I think it's a perfect record.
I'm going to give it a 4.5. That way I got a little room for improvement.
Yeah, but you're kind of basing it on. I mean, I get that.
So what you're saying is you'll give multiple albums from this period of 5. I don't like to hand them out very often.
Well, you're a professional. I get it. Normally, I don't either. But I love this record. I can't help it.
Yeah, I like it even more now that I've been researching it a little more.
It's great.
I mean, I started listening to all this stuff in the mid 80s.
Yeah, I did too.
So
I got the original Rykos. I remember sitting in the parking lot at OSU listening to We're Only in It for the Money, waiting to go into class. Sitting there, even though that had all the re-recordings of the bass and the drums. Okay. But think about it. Back in the 80s, you could barely find any of this stuff. If you found like an original pressing and We're Only in It for the Money, it'd be expensive.
yeah, they were hard to find.
Hard to find.
I had this back.
Same with this. This was
you
hard to find.
Did you ever see this? I had this back in the day, and I sold it. I sold off a lot of my collection on eBay back 25 years ago.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
That was everything up to Reuben and the Jets with plus the first mystery disc.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all the remixes on vinyl. But it's worth a lot of money now. A lot. I think they were about $500 used, on Discogs, so whatever.
But I'm going to say, though, if anybody still has those Ryko CDs, for God's sakes, go out and get the 2012, the real mix, the original mixes of these records, for crying out loud.
That's me then.
But anyway, I do want to say, like, I know we're only in it for the money, but even in like 87, I'd be sitting there ready to go to class, listening to it, and the brilliance, even though it had those re-recorded. Oh my God. What a great bass. But then to listen to it from the 2012 CD with the original mix, all makes sense. Beautiful. I know Frank didn't like the sound of it or whatever, was saying that the tape was deteriorating. I don't know.
If that was the case, then how did they do the 2012s?
I don't buy it because the tapes back in the 60s didn't deteriorate. All those tapes in the 70s, when they changed their formula, those are the records that started to get all sticky and they have to bake them. All those 60s tapes should be fine. I think he just didn't like it. He tried to rewrite history.
Yeah, Ozzy and Sharon did that as well, but we won't go into that.
No, that's a different show.
Yeah, but
So anyway, you'd give this what again?
4.5.
I'll give it a 5.
Give me a little room to breathe there.
I think it's brilliant. I love it. But that's me. There's going to be more 5s coming. I can guarantee you. As we go through this series.
So you're looking to do Lumpy Gravy and I'm going
to rethink it because Lumpy Gravy is really not a Mother's record.
No, but they go together.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Do you have Lumpy Money?
Yeah.
There you go. So we probably should do them together.
Okay, we'll do them together.
I have the
Pontus is going to be down for that. So we'll have Pontus come on.
I have the Twofer Ryko disc of that laying around somewhere. That's probably all I got. I might have a vinyl or something. But we'll talk
about you being hardcore. I'm surprised you don't have the 2012 CDs.
I stopped buying stuff for a long time.
But you do have the vinyl, so you do have it.
Lumpy and I don't have vinyls of those anymore. I just have the Ryko. No.
Oh my God, you poor thing.
Yeah. I got Spotify and I got most of these up. I got the 2012s on my hard drive. So
for God's sakes, Jesus, you're killing me.
Well, I buy stuff, but I don't. I buy stuff. I stream stuff. Whatever. I got a little bit of everything going on.
No, I don't stream anything. I'm a purist. But anyway, that's neither here or there. So let's just recap. I'm giving Absolutely Free a 5. You're giving it a 4.5, 4.7?
4.5.
4.5. And then Freak Out, I'm giving it a 4, and you're giving it.
I'm giving it a 4 as well.
Okay.
I'm rounding up.
So there you go. So anyway, as everyone's seen, we're at an hour. We're going to wrap this dog up. the next episode, we're going to look at We're Only in It for the Money and Lumpy Gravy. Even though Lumpy Gravy's not considered a Mother's album, let's look at it and document what we think about it. And like I said, I've got the Zappa family CD, so Lumpy Money or whatever it is.
Yeah. That's sweet.
I highly recommend it. Holy crap.
That's
Byron,
got
do yourself a favor and get it before you can't get it.
So that's also got the 4-track cartridge version, which is like 20 minutes long. Plus, it's also got the one with like Ike Willis on it.
Yeah.
Right? That's worth having.
Go get it before you can't get it. Well, this universal takeover, since they've gotten rid of the catalog, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. We need to save that discussion for later.
We will save it for later. So there you go. There's our review. Well, it's more of Byron's review than mine. I'm playing host tonight, even though I love these records, but you did such a wonderful job talking about these records. And I want to thank you for, actually, it was you, and I think it was you that came up with this series. I just want to thank you for coming on and talking about it.
Yeah, I like talking Zappa.
Hell yes, you do. You're a freaking man. You like it. It's great stuff, kids. Get those 2012 records. Go to the Zappa records, the family site, and get them while you can.
Well, we got 100 and some more albums to cover.
You got to get this. Well, like I told Pontus, I said, right now we're just looking at the Mother stuff.
Right. See how that goes.
Well, let's see how we go. I don't care how far we go, but I'll be dead by the time we get to the end.
Right.
I'm only going to live so long.
Right.
So, but do yourself a favor and get this if you can get it. Golly crap. Talking about reissue campaigns that hit it out of the park. Actually, that sounds like a topic for a show. What reissue campaigns hit it out of the park? I can think of these, the 2012 Zappa CDs, they hit it out of the park. You think about the Beatles mono box set, hitting it out of the park. The Rolling Stones mono CD set, beautiful. There's a lot of stuff that's hit it out of the park. I would
chime in with the Jethro Tull box sets.
There you go, and they're not expensive.
Some of them are. Most aren't, but some.
Well, if you wait and buy them later, they're going to be expensive.
They're pretty cheap to buy them new, so when they first come out, right?
Yep. Anyway, we're at an hour and 12 minutes. Byron, I want to thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure, and it was fun talking about Zappa. We will get Pontus on for the next episode, and we will talk about We're Only in It for the Money and Lumpy Gravy. Leave a comment, leave a like. You know the whole routine. All right, we'll see you on the next one.
Good night.
Good night, Byron. Thank you for coming on.